monthly meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. I'm Hazel Nurse, the chairman. On my far left is Jenny Goodrich, our town planner, John Pizzosi, John Gelsich, Mark Silverberg, Peter Bouchard, and my far right is Kristen Bellinger, who is our administrative assistant. So welcome. This meeting is being televised by Westborough TV, just so everyone's aware of that. We've got a couple of matters tonight which just call for a continuation. Has been requested by the applicant, so I think we'll take those first and get them out of the way. The first one is a continuation of the public hearing for site plan review of 165 Flanders, application ID 22-02443, and they've requested a continuation to 6/18/24, and I believe this is because they're trying to deal with a wetlands problem. Jenny, do you have any comment on that?
None other than they've requested a continuation because of the same ongoing reason.
Are there any questions from the board on this matter? If not, could I have a motion to continue this matter to our meeting on June 18th?
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for 165 Flanders Road until June 18th, 2024 meeting date.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ready to vote? All in favor? 5-0.
Can I just ask,
Sure.
if we hit 2 years on this one, can we just tell them they have to reapply? Because, I mean, we're closing in on 2 years. This is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's definitely up to the board. You can make that determination.
Over a year and a half, December 20th, 2022 was the application.
Should we notify them if it's like that?
We've asked them numerous times
Okay.
to move this forward, so
I mean, the other option is we just don't grant any more continuations. We say, you know, the next one is the last continuation, and then they have to present before us, and if they have insufficient material to grant whatever permit, we deny it, or they withdraw.
Maybe the thing to do is to have a letter from the planning board to them and tell them that if they are not prepared to make a presentation in June, that the planning board is considering not granting any further continuation on this matter.
So I just have a question. Should I have brought that up before we motion to continue it?
No,
Is it too late for us to discuss
No, because
that?
we've already continued to June.
we've already
Yeah, You've
continued.
already continued, so I can, if the board agrees, then I can send them a letter letting them know that this is the last continuance.
I'm okay with
Okay,
that.
do we need to vote that?
I don't think so.
I mean, I think as
It's
long as
just
I'm
an
seeing you're all
instruction
in
to Jenny
concurrence
to-
with that, that's fine.
Yeah, that works.
Do that.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's no objections.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second is the continuation of the public hearing for the site plan application at 101-105 Flanders Road. That was also been requested by the applicant to continue to June 18th, 2024. This is, I know, because they need to reflag wetlands that they found there. This is that property that has a driveway problem that goes out onto Old Flanders Road. Jenny, do you have any update on that?
It was sent out to our peer reviewer, so it's currently in review.
Okay. And are there any questions from the board on that? If not, could I have a motion to continue this matter until June 18th, 2024, as requested by the applicant?
Yeah, I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for 134 Fisher Street, parcel 18-51 dash.
It's 101 Flanders.
Sorry.
101-105.
Oh, yeah,
Flanders Road.
101-105 Flanders Road, parcel 29-4-0, until June 18th, 2024 meeting date.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor? 5-0 to grant the application. All right. We will now go to a continuation, reopen the public hearing for special permit site plan review at 134 Fisher Street. application ID 23-03565. Do we have someone here for the applicant?
Richard, come on up. We're still waiting for our engineer, but I think we can start without him.
Okay, go ahead. Could you introduce yourself for the?
Yep, for
record,
the record, Peter Barberry from Fletcher Tilton, attorney on behalf of Richard Record. And Richard is the owner of the property we're proposing the 18 one-bedroom units on. The last time we were with the board, we identified that we were making some changes to the plan to include bulkheads to get into the basement to assist with utilities. There's no access to the from interior to the basement area, it's just for the bulkhead area. Using the bulkheads necessitated another waiver from the board, as you can see on that plan. Units 1 through 9 along Fisher Street with the bulkhead in the back encroach within the required setback. So we're looking for a waiver to allow the bulkheads to be within that front setback. We have an extensive landscaping plan along that side. We're also retaining as many of the mature trees as we can, so the bulkheads really won't be visible because of the landscaping and everything else we're providing, but that does necessitate another waiver. The units themselves meet the setback requirement, so it's just the bulkheads. The bulkheads also end up changing some of the, as you can see, from units 2 through 10 and then 12 through 18, installing the bulkheads behind those things also reduces the setback between the buildings. We're anticipating the definition of the bulkhead, including parting of the building, so we've provided the setbacks based upon the bulkheads themselves and not the structures. So we had previously requested for relief from the building separation, and now that also applies to the setbacks from the bulkheads. You can see on that plan, there's only, I think, 3 units that have 12-foot separation between the sides. That's between units 2 and 4, and then 13, 15, and 17. Everything else extends to 14, 16, 18, but it's less than the 20. So that's the relief we need, both from the front setback as well as the building separations. The other requested relief, and you've seen this plan before, the driveways provide for 1 parking space for each of the one-bedroom units. As a result of comments from the board and others, you can see that we've added, I believe it's 10 guest parking spaces on the main entry. But still, that doesn't provide the requirement of 2 spaces per unit. So we're asking for relief to have 28 parking spaces rather than 36 parking spaces. We feel that the one-bedroom units with the 10 guests will more than supply the parking that would be required for the use of the development. And other than the main transit development special permit and site plan, that's the relief that we need. So this is basically the same plan that you've seen that has been reviewed, with the exception of the addition of the bulkheads and the additional relief as a result of adding those bulkheads. We have received comments within the last week from DPW and engineering. Patrick is scheduled to be here, but his comment to me on yesterday was that he did not see any issues associated with the last set of comments from that. We have seen your draft of a decision, and there is nothing that we have any issue with in regards to that, other than having to add in the additional relief from this front setback requirement. And the other relief that is associated is the size of the units themselves, and we've talked about that and provided those floor plans. Basically, the units, again, are roughly 650 square feet, 1 bedroom, and we've gone through the floor plan with the board previously.
Are there any questions to the applicant from members of the board? John?
I have a quick question. It's not for the applicant, it's for Jenny. the new special permit request for the setback, A, is that something that we can grant? And B, does that have anything that,
That's just a waiver,
it's just a waiver from
Yeah.
zoning, it's not a new special permit?
not a special permit. Same thing as the
Then I
waiver
mis-
with the
I misheard.
separation between the units.
So within the TOV special permit bylaw, the planning board can waive some dimensional requirements and other things, such as parking
I
requirements as
misunderstood that. I
well.
thought that was a request for a new special permit, so I don't have a question then.
John, do you have any questions? Peter?
Is this about the conditions or just for what we just heard?
I think the new condition, then we will go through the draft motion
Okay.
step by step. This
Okay.
is on the changes that have been asked for. Do you have any questions on the presentation?
I'm good on that part.
And you've had a chance to review it?
I'm sorry?
You've had a chance to review the draft?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean, the only thing, I understand this is a standard condition, I just haven't worked with the board before. The one question I had, more for clarification purposes, is the issue of the bonding. I'm assuming you're talking about bonding absent substantial, not bonding of the entire cost of the site improvements, correct?
We'll work with the engineering department once the planning board
We will work
decision
with them
is
to-
made, and then we'll determine the performance bond amount. And it'll be returned to you at the end of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, did you have any comments on this project? Okay. Fine. But then, why don't we go through the draft decision, and then I'll open it up for questions from anybody here who's,
You want to close the hearing and then go through a discussion of the decision?
you want to do it that way, or is that, okay?
I think
Well,
that's
then I will-
typically what you would-
Yeah, since it's a public hearing, I will ask if there's anyone here who wish to comment on this project at 134 Fisher Street. All right, if not, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move to close the public hearing on 134 Fisher Street.
Is there a second? All in favor?
And again, that would also include the additional front relief.
Yes, it was in the draft motion.
So point of clarification,
Yeah.
if we close the public hearing, which we just did, the applicant can't speak anymore.
I think a point of information could be asked. That's what that was. So I believe you can ask a point of information. You can't ask anything else on this.
No new testimony can be added, no new information.
Right. Jenny, if you could go through the draft decision
Sure.
for us.
I'm not going to
And
read
then
read
if
each
anybody
one,
has
but
any
I'll summarize
Right,
essentially
she
the
doesn't, I don't think we need to
sections.
do it step by step, but I asked her whether she could just summarize the various sections. Hopefully, everybody's had a chance to review it, and it will be up on the board here.
So some of these items in the beginning are just our standard conditions. It has to be recorded at the registry. It's limited to the site plan that was distributed. This is only for Phase 1 of the project, which includes 18 single-family units. The planning board, through its regulations, can hire outside consultants as necessary. The applicant is responsible for filing any other permits. However, I believe they already received their notice of intent from conservation. This is good for 3 years, so you would have to start the work within 3 years. Otherwise, you'd have to come back to the board to extend it or reapply. It's subject to any modifications. You would have to come back to the board for any modifications. And here are the waivers. So you've requested a habitable floor area of 576 square feet instead of the required 750 square feet. Units 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 have a reduced front yard setback from the required 25 feet. And then there are varying distances between the units as shown on the plan instead of the required 20 feet. Additionally, each unit shall have 1 parking space instead of the required 2 spaces per the bylaw. And however, you did add an additional 10 visitor parking spaces in addition to the parking. You'll have a total, or first I should say, do you have any questions, board, on that section? Before I move on? Okay.
I don't, any board member have a question?
Okay, so as it pertains to affordable housing, there'll be a total of 4 affordable designated units for this phase. The applicant's responsible for preparing any documentation required by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. And as I had relayed to Patrick, we're happy to help you with that process through the Affordable Housing Trust as well. We can provide technical assistance.
Chair, I have a question on that.
Yes.
Is it standard process for the town to just request preparation of the documents, or for the applicant to administer and kind of, not administer, but administrate the whole affordable process and undertake that? The lottery, all the other steps, not just preparation of the documents?
Yes, so condition 35 says that no certificate of occupancy shall be issued until all of that documentation is completed and given to the town for record.
Okay, so that condition captures the administrative process as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The other items, the selection of the renters must be done under an affirmative fair housing marketing plan, which would be in compliance with EOHLC guidelines anyway. The units need to be integrated into the rest of the development and be compatible in design and appearance. The affordability component must be in perpetuity. The construction has to be scheduled so that for every 4 units you construct, 1 needs to be affordable. And then the certificate of occupancy designation there.
Through the chair, just a question on that other
Yes.
one too. Just so everyone's on the same page, what you mean by for every 4 units constructed, 1 should be an affordable unit. You can construct 3 market rate units, and then the 4th has to be affordable, correct?
Correct.
I thought for the renters, we were also trying to have a preference for people from Westborough.
We can certainly add in a condition for a local preference that would need to be part of their marketing plan that they submit to EOHLC, if that's something the board agrees on.
Does that put any extra requirements on the town or the applicant, aside from just the local preference process?
Not the town, the applicant would just need to add that as part of their marketing plan when there'll be a list distributed to them of those in need of affordable housing, and they would need to show preference to those that are currently residing in Westborough.
I think that would be a nice thing to add, if the rest of the board agrees.
Just a question, I don't have a problem with the preference. Would the preference be for both residents of Westborough as well as people who work in Westborough?
I think it should include both. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think that should, be subject to EOHCD approval, and then if they come back and say, no, you can't have that, I don't think they should be subject to a modification of the special permit. So I don't know how to,
Yes,
I don't know
yeah,
how to
they would
word
have
that.
to approve it, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they say, no, this project isn't eligible for local preference, we're not going to approve those units for the SHI. I don't want it to have to come back here, and,
That's fine, yeah.
is that all right? We could call it a de minimis, but it just means you'd have to come back in, so.
I just said subject to EOHLC approval. So the marketing plan shall include a preference to current residents of Westborough and employees of businesses located within Westborough, subject to EOHLC approval.
Now, are we talking about people, for example, that work in a business in town, or are we talking more about people who are town employees? Are we including both?
Include both?
Okay, I just wanted to, see how broad the language is so that we don't get in a,
Work in town, yeah.
okay.
Anything else on the affordability section? So prior to construction, the applicant will need to provide a construction schedule for the project at the time of the issuance of the building permit, and it needs to include the start of construction, time, completion, and then estimated times of status in between. The applicant will be required to have a pre-construction meeting with town staff, and will review the construction schedule at that time. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the shop drawings of all materials must be submitted to the DPW for review. Prior to the issuance of the building permit, a bond or performance guarantee has to be filed by the applicant in an amount determined by town staff, and that will be reviewed by engineering and the other offices as well. Any questions on that section? Darren? Oh.
Sorry, one just popped up. Are we fine without having any language about a project manager? I know we've done that in the past.
In my opinion, I don't think this project necessarily needs one. I think in that other project, I think it was much needed, so I think we're okay on this one.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
I think we can take this probably project by project and deal with it.
Yeah, that's
on
fine.
that basis.
I just figured
And I know they're only here for the first 18, but if they want to continue the project, I think they're going to complete the project on time.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so during construction, a copy of the decision should be kept on site in a location that's visible and accessible during construction. All construction activities must comply with the bylaw, the planning board rules and regulations, et cetera. The unobstructed road access with a width of 20 feet should be provided during construction so first responders can access the site. Any work in the right-of-way or any work is subject to the DPW's rules and regulations. And we also have the right to enter the site to make sure that everything is in compliance. The site can't cause any dust or debris. It's suggested that a water truck be kept on site to wet down any dusty areas. But I think that site's familiar with that. Daily cleanup of construction debris. The applicant shall provide erosion control methods. And then the hours of construction as per the bylaw. Any questions on that? Okay.
Oh,
Peter?
just based on location with the school, do we need to, never mind, it's fine.
Excuse me. And for environment and stormwater, water connection permit and fee for phase 1 will be required. And then the water and sewer connection permits and fees will be required for phase 2. In phase 2, you'd have to come back to the planning board. A trench permit will also be required, and a licensed town of Westborough approved drain layer shall be used. The site is subject to private site water, sewer and drain system operation and maintenance program. The owner and the site contractor will be required to sign and submit a stormwater permit, including a schedule. Shop drawings of all materials need to be submitted to the DPW for review. The stormwater management plan, which was also submitted as part of this application and reviewed by the DPW, should be submitted, and if there's any changes, reviewed. The septic system needs to be located in conformance to the location shown on the site, and then if necessary, the applicant will make any modifications as directed by the DPW. Any questions on that?
Mark, you had a
Not on that,
question?
but can we back up to construction? Is there earth moving involved with this?
It would be included because it's a construction project. It would need a
Do we
separate.
regulate routes to and from? I want to minimize traffic going down Arch Street.
I think aren't you using what's on site?
Yes, everything on site as well will have to import.
You will be importing.
Could we just have a condition that all those vehicles come from Otis Street and nobody uses Arch Street? I mean, I'm not looking to regulate any contractors that you use during
Mainly
construction,
trucks.
but the heavy trucking I'd like to keep off of Arch Street, is that?
Arch Street is a 5-ton or less, right?
You said Arch Street?
Arch, ARCH, yeah.
And you're talking about large construction vehicles,
Well, I
like
think
dump trucks or any,
my inclination would be any construction vehicles. I mean, they can come in from Smith Parkway or from Otis Street, I would think.
Yeah, they come from Otis to Smith Parkway
Yeah,
to Fisher.
right. Yeah, so I would say any, just to make sure we've covered our bases on
I think it's going to be tough for him to regulate, a painting contractor who's coming to
Well,
the
right,
site.
yeah.
So I think we should,
But if there's
give
no-
some leeway there so that he's,
Yeah, there's no reason why he could not request any contractors or subcontractors that they come in from Otis Street. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be standing out there saying, you can't come through Arch Street, but at the same time, we are trying to keep the traffic down on Arch Street where people use it as a cut-through.
It's the same thing as Fisher Street. If they're going to cut through Fisher Street, I mean, across in front of the school, I mean, I know it's at the end of Fisher where this is at, but if you're having work trucks coming down the same thing, it's the same thing as going down Arch Street, in my opinion.
well, I want him to go out to Route 9. right?
Yeah,
But-
exactly, yeah.
Right.
But Fisher Street doesn't have a truck exclusion, unfortunately. I actually saw a very large vehicle. I also saw a large truck on Church Street, which
Yes.
I believe was coming from a construction project in town. And I don't know who's responsible for enforcement on all of this. We put these conditions in, but I don't know.
We don't
how-
have somebody standing out there saying, I'm sorry, you
well,
can't take this route.
if it's something that we get complaints about, then we would look at the decision, see if it's in there, and then go out and address the issue with the contractor.
All right, I'm complaining. I'll talk to you about it later.
Okay. So just on Arch Street, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Any other questions on the environment and stormwater? Fire protection, all locked gates will require the installation of a rapid access key box. All private fire hydrants will be painted red. Questions on that? For lighting and noise, the outdoor lighting needs to conform to the requirements of the bylaw and not include any spotlights. The illumination of the outdoor lights shall not exceed the state maximum for parking areas. Any lighting installed on the exterior buildings or any pole-mounted light fixtures need to be shielded. Any questions on that?
Now, I do have one question. Does this project come before the Design Review Board?
Yes, they did just submitted their application.
They did, all right, because I'm a little concerned about lighting. So the Design Review Board can look at the lighting involved.
Yeah, they submitted a photometric plan with this application, and it meets the requirements, but for the specifications for the lighting, the Design Review Board would look at that.
All right, yeah. No, I am particularly concerned about lighting along the sidewalks.
Okay.
And I'm wondering whether
always
you
lighting.
might think about doing low lighting,
Right.
along the ground, kind of lighting along the sidewalks. I haven't seen the plans you submitted, but I was thinking about that today, and I was thinking about the fact that, there will be people walking. So if there were some lighting along, and I think because
Difficult
the
to show.
project's small, because the project's small and close, I would think that you might want to think about lighting down near the ground versus tall light poles. So that's just a thought.
Yep.
It will get discussed, obviously, at design review, but I was kind of thinking how to minimize, because the houses are fairly close together and, you know, and it would sort of leave more of an open landscape if the lighting perhaps could be close to the ground versus tall poles. It's just a thought I'll just throw out. Has nothing to do with this, but it will be design review. Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
For the off-street parking area, the applicant will construct the sidewalks as shown on the plans, and then any sidewalk designs will be submitted to the town engineer and DPW for review and approved prior to construction. Any questions on that? For landscaping and snow storage, they'll submit the applicant will complete all landscaping for the plans provided with the application. And then the landscaping needs to be completed prior to the certificate of occupancy. Until the final certificate of occupancy is received, the applicant's responsible for maintaining the landscaping and all plantings. And then the applicant will provide adequate snow storage in the areas shown on the project plans. Any questions on that?
My only thing is I know they have to go to design review, but I didn't see any specific language that said that they needed to.
It's in the beginning, they need to.
It's in the beginning,
Yeah,
okay,
they need to
because
go to,
that obviously would include landscaping, would
Yes.
go to design review.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. So right now, it's a big gravel pit, basically, right? I mean, I don't know if that's the right word to call it.
Sorry, I got
but
hearing aids.
Right now, it's a big, lots of
Gravel,
piles of.
yep.
And I'm looking at the landscaping plan, and I see a lot of landscaping for the 18 units. And obviously, the septic leach field is going in on the other side.
Yep.
But there's really no landscaping plan for the remainder of the site. Is it just going to be all grassy? You know, currently there's a driveway coming down from the town property. Is that going to be closed off as part of the grading plan? Again, sometimes I look at these and I'm like, well, which one do I look at to get the answer? So
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the elevations. Patrick, maybe you can answer?
I just want to make sure that we're not going to have somebody decide to drive down that driveway and go to the parking lot.
We can certainly have a condition that that be blocked. or
Well, yeah,
gated.
just a couple of big rocks or something, you know,
Yep.
yeah.
Follow up on that quickly, just at the same thing, thinking about it. I think my concern, more than anything else, is that you put the first phase in, and then it takes you 3, 4, 5 years to the second phase. What is that going to look like in between to the people that are living in the houses?
My intention is to level it and then boom and seed it.
Oh, okay.
And I'm fine with that, that's kind of what
Yeah.
it's kind
And a
of what I
large
got from the
portion of that will
grading
be
and the leach field.
septic.
I mean, you're
Right,
going
right.
to have to level it to put the leach field in, right? So, and you're going to have to seed it on top, but I just want to make sure that that old driveway is not accessible to a vehicle anymore. Just a couple of big rocks or something.
So do you want to put a condition that the area set aside for phase 2 shall be loamed and seeded?
Yep. Yeah, I'm more concerned about the viewscape from the people that are living in the units, so that they're not looking out at a huge pile of rocks and debris.
You don't want them looking at a construction site.
Yes,
We understand.
exactly.
So that rock is going to be the road base.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm Patrick Healy. I'm the civil engineer for the project.
Okay.
I had a question on the landscaping requirement. Since these small homes will be built in phases, can we look at the wording on the requirement to landscape prior to the certificate of occupancy? Can we look at it on a unit-by-unit basis? First unit can be occupied.
Oh, I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
maybe it's all landscaping associated with a unit shall be
Shall be completed prior to
completed
the.
prior to occupancy.
Right.
So I mean, I've seen plenty of, projects, condo projects where the loam and seed is all done at once at the end. And, I don't really have an objection to that, because it makes sense to do it that way. Like, I don't necessarily see why you have to loam and seed around each building individually. Do all your plantings at once. I mean, I'm comfortable with that. I don't think you're gonna have a 2-year gap between Unit 1 and Unit 18, but I don't know exactly how to word that condition.
So all landscaping completed prior to the final certificate of occupancy issuance?
I mean, I'm comfortable with that.
That's all right. Yeah, because often I think what happens, at least it did with the project across the street, is that the building department did issue sort of temporary certificates of occupancy for people to move in. You may remember that from a preceding plan.
Yes, yeah.
And so, I think if we use the here final, that probably will be okay on this aspect of it.
So my only concern with that is, for some reason, something happens economy-wise, and he says, I'm only going to end up building 12 of the units. Never going to be a requirement to finish the landscape.
I think we should do them 5 at a time, because it's 4 and then 1 affordable, right?
3 and then 1
Three
Well, three and 1 affordable, so maybe do them at pockets of 4?
Why not? Yeah, I mean.
I don't know, I'm just probably overthinking.
We have a bond if that happens, don't we?
True. That's true.
So, I mean, I don't
Then I
think
guess
that,
for the bond to be cashed in, would we have to wait until the project, would we have to have the zoning enforcement official determine that the project has been abandoned, or otherwise?
Well, otherwise, the other thing is that the design review board will not sign off if the landscaping is not completed, so that there is a second level of approvals on this.
well, so let me ask you, we don't do temporary building occupancy, right?
They have been issued, let me say.
Well, I was going to say, and how long would that be good for? Because we could say you could get a temporary building occupancy, but he couldn't get the final occupancy on the units till the landscaping is done. Or I don't know. We'd need Fred's
That's
input
totally
on
up to
that.
Fred.
I would say that, I think I'm comfortable with all landscaping should be completed prior to the final certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
And then, we have the bond if anything.
Maybe we could have all grading be done prior to occupancy. I mean, I don't know. Is that?
I mean, that would
why
be
don't we-
typical
That's nitpicking.
anyway.
Yeah, why don't we do
Yeah.
final and leave it at that, and then if a question arises, we can always come back and discuss it.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, I know your intent
I
is,
mean, what
but
will happen, I
obviously-
mean, the landscaping, let's say for Unit 1, will be installed at the time that Unit 1 is in and gets the occupancy. The landscaping for Unit 18 may be 6, 8 months down the road. That landscaping can't be done because we haven't put in the foundation, we haven't done anything else, but that landscaping will be done at the time the occupancy is issued for that unit.
Yeah.
So I think maybe you have something along those lines, is that unit landscaping shall be completed at the time of issuance of the occupancy certificate for that unit.
Barring weather conditions. I mean, if you finish your first unit in December, it's going to be pretty hard to put your landscaping in.
Well, that's why I think we
That's all
should
I'm
just make
saying.
the landscape, the final landscaping, prior to final occupancy. Again, I really don't have a problem if there's people living in there and they don't get loam and seeded for 3 months, because it makes sense to me to bring all the loam in at once for this. This is not a big site. I don't really want you to have to truck in 18 loads of loam and seed those individually, and, I mean, that seems counterproductive.
I think final certificate of occupancy on 61 probably is sufficient.
Okay. And then the entrance that the current entrance that crosses the town of Westborough property will be restored per the direction of the DPW director. That was the last part there. You asked for that
Right,
area to
some-
be restored,
yeah.
and he basically just said to restore it to, loam and seed or whatever's currently
I mean,
there.
if-
It's a parking area for
As
the
long as it,
town.
as long as it doesn't look like a driveway anymore. That's, because I don't want to invite a vehicle down there.
So as it pertains to a certificate of occupancy, a stamped and signed as-built shall be submitted to the DPW for review and approval prior to endorsement of the occupancy permit. And the DPW also has a checklist that needs to be filled out. The as-built plan will also be provided in PDF and AutoCAD format. At least 14 days prior to the request for the certificate of occupancy, the applicant will contact the planning office for a site visit to review the conditions and prior to a sign-off on the certificate of occupancy. And again, then as-built shall be submitted to all the departments, which will include landscaping, utilities, lighting, the plot plan, site improvements, et cetera. Any other questions?
All right, are there any questions from members of the board on this? Could I have a motion then to approve the special permit for 134 Fisher Street?
I move that the planning board approve the special permit for 134 Fisher Street as presented.
With the changes
With the changes
made this evening.
made this evening.
And
Second.
again, I don't have that version, but that will include the front setback waiver.
Wait, do we want to vote the waivers
We vote the
individually?
waivers separately normally.
The waivers are included as part of the conditions.
Oh, as part of the conditions, okay, then we
Yeah, I don't want to,
It'd be
I
part
don't want to
of,
vote, what is it, 18 waivers? Something like,
no, it would have done as a
Yeah.
block anyway, but
I know.
Do we need to make any findings
Yep.
that are relevant?
No, I mean, you've made findings throughout the hearing I've been keeping track of, so I'll write a decision that includes the findings and distribute it to the board.
Okay, so are we voting on the approval of the special permit now, or are we waiting for the decision to be completed and then voting to approve it based on the decision?
You have been voting on it, the decision with the conditions.
I would feel comfortable voting tonight with the,
I think the
As
conditions are what
presented,
we, you
yeah,
know,
the conditions are
focus on
here. And the other thing is that we also do have a list of the waivers, which we have discussed, so if that's part of the conditions, then I think that takes care of that problem of them not being included.
So Pete made a motion, and I think I seconded it. If I didn't, I do it now.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Vote, all in favor? 5-0. Good
Thank-
luck with your project.
Thank you.
All right, the next matter is the continuation of the public hearing, excuse me, for 101-105,
18.
I'm sorry, for 18 and 30 Lyman Street. We have someone here for the applicant. Donahue, you here by yourself, or you have some other people with you?
I've got a whole team with me. Can't travel by myself.
And do you need me to pull up the plans, or do you have a presentation for any changes? You can plug in there or up here. It's up to you.
So we can certainly begin if it's okay.
Oh,
to do it.
fine, go ahead. I
My name is
understand,
Mark Donahue. I'm with Fletcher Tilton. I represent Colangelo, Massachusetts real estate. with regard to their application for special permit with you in the highway business zone. With me this evening is Brittany Gessner of VHB. They are the civil engineers of record. The Colangelos are here also, together with Vinod Kalakari of VHB with regard to traffic, and David Berryman, who you met at the previous meeting with regard to architecture.
Through the chair, can you just move the microphone a little bit closer?
Sure. Thank you. This evening is really more to the board of a status report and to touch on a couple of items that were touched on in the first meeting that we can provide some follow-up information with regard to. We are working through peer review comments. VHB submitted detailed responses on May 6th to Ty and Bond and Engineering Department. There's a hope that we'll have a meeting with engineering as early as this week sometime to go through those, and our target is to try to have all those comments resolved and back to you by your June 4th meeting. So that's really to be resolved, I think, among the engineers, so we won't take your time with that this evening. Part of that response and part of the issues that were touched on in our first meeting was the configuration to the rear of the primary building with regard to the access for both the underground garage for the primary building, the rear, what I call the rear parking lot for the building that has the units on the second floor, and also how that interacts with the loading docks for the two new retail. And with your permission, I'll have Ms. Gessner review with you the signage and other protections that we're suggesting for that area.
I'd be delighted. Brittany?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Donahue. So as was discussed a few meetings ago when we were here, the primary entrance to the underground parking for the residents at the new building will be in the back of the site. There's also loading in the back of the site for the newly proposed retail spaces on the first floor. The site is very constrained back here due to a wetland that is immediately south of the existing curb cut that is an ACEC area and has a number of other natural restrictions that prevent us from pushing the development to the south. You can see in this image, we are proposing 3 loading docks at the rear of the building. And then on the left-hand side of those loading docks is the entrance for the passenger vehicles to go to the underground parking. In order for the trucks to utilize those 3 loading docks, they will utilize the drive aisle immediately south to back into those spaces. This could pose a conflict for the passenger vehicles or the trucks as they're backing up. So we will be adding significant signage before you enter that space, cautioning passenger vehicles that this is a loading area and that they should be aware of the potential for trucks turning in or out of those loading docks. I do think it's worth noting that this is the rear of the building. We do not anticipate the public or people who are unfamiliar with the site to be back here. We would expect that any new residents or visitors would be parking in front of the building. This really should be limited to residents who are familiar with the area, but we will be installing signage throughout to caution folks to be aware of the activities.
Would you like us to hold questions till the end?
No, you can feel free.
Whatever the chairwoman would
Will
like.
any of this signage, sorry, through the chair.
No, go ahead.
Will any of the signage have like flashing lights or any other kind of indicators that might catch somebody's attention?
No, there will be these yellow signs, and there will be 6 of them, 8 of them.
Right. I guess I'm just thinking, if you're a resident and you've lived there for 4 years, right? You kind of get used to those signs, and so you don't pay attention to them anymore. And if there's a truck coming in, if there's some type of like weight trigger,
Sure.
that if there's a truck passing through that driveway or sitting on a loading bay or something like that, the lights can go on, so they flash, and then that kind of.
That is something we can explore, yeah, is something with the operator of those loading docks that they, turn on a flashing light or some other indicator that there's activity happening in the dock. That's something we can explore.
Are you going to be encouraging people to essentially not use this access to the parking lot, to the parking lots, or any way that way? I mean, is there going to be any encouragement so that they don't have to drive by the loading docks? Or are you just assuming that
No, I
people
think
can
that-
No,
go
we-
in and out either
I think
way?
that's unrealistic.
Yeah,
Correct, because that is the only access for the underground parking. So
I don't think
this
they're
will be
gonna
the
drive
primary
around.
access for residents who live there.
right, well, you might want to put a sign before they come in there saying, "Watch for trucks."
Yeah, I
And
think
it-
there's
and
ones
it-
down there on the right,
Additional
next to Building 8.
added loading area. I'm thinking about the fact, as you come in from Lyman Street, on that, down that driveway,
Sure.
maybe before you make the turn around the back of the building, you might want to think about something that just said, "Watch for trucks."
How about residents only? If you're only, you really, or authorized vehicles only, something like that? So
I
that-
think we'll have to discuss that with the applicant.
I'm just thinking about,
mean,
yeah, before you turn, make the turn behind the building, whether there were a sign there that just warned people that there were trucks, because the other problem is that I assume the trucks will be going out that way also.
Correct, yeah. So we are proposing to, just after this turn, we could locate them here, just before the turn, if you would
Yeah,
prefer that better. Okay,
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, it might give, at least remind people that there are going to be trucks back there before you make the turn, because if you have a sign as you're making a turn, you sometimes don't see the sign. In other words, you're paying attention to turning. As you come in, you're paying attention with your car as you're turning, and you may fail to see a sign right there, but if it's as you come this way, you might see the sign better. So that would just be a suggestion on placement of the signage.
okay. Yeah, we are proposing them just as you enter this area, and then again as you get closer to the loading area.
Yeah, it just would seem to me, your point about, well, the residents will get used to this and they'll, but maybe keeping the public from going back there or discouraging the public from going back there with an, authorized vehicles only. I can't imagine why somebody would use that as a shortcut to anywhere.
Well, would you
Sure,
need
I mean,
have
there's really no need for anyone to be back here unless
Other
they're
than residents
parking
or
or know to
employees.
go there
Right.
as a
Right.
resident.
I mean, you will have people that own businesses parking back there, I assume.
Well, right, but that's an
Yeah,
authorized.
that's
But again,
authorized,
just the employees,
It's
yeah.
really just, a sign.
Okay,
I
we
don't
can,
think,
yeah,
I'm
we
not
can look into
expecting you
that.
to police it, but.
The more signage, the better.
Okay,
Disagree. Too much signage, you don't pay attention to any signage.
Good point.
Beyond that, to bring you up to date, since our last meeting, we did meet with the Board of Selectmen on April 9th. You have received a note with some of their comments dated April 10th. One related to the concern on the impact of school-aged children residing in the development and the impact that would have on the school system. You also received comments on that same vein from the superintendent, which are in Permit Pro. We submitted a letter of March 17th responsive to that, and I think there's a couple of things worth pointing out in that letter. First, one must recall that of the 132 units, 36 are studio units, which are really not suitable for school-aged children to reside in any fashion. And as to the 1- and 2-bedroom units, they are what one would think of as more traditional 2-bedroom. In other words, they don't have 2 bedrooms plus a study or a den or an alcove or in some fashion, which often leads to it. And this size is fairly condensed also. Through the planning department, we were able to get some data as to apartment complexes in Westborough and their current enrollment of students. It runs a pretty big gamut from 0.87 per unit students to 0.06. And when you look at it, it depends a lot on the nature of the unit, how large it is in some fashion, where it's located, the amenities available to it in some fashion. We think this project is more analogous to some of the more dense locations, the Union Street, for example, part of the Bay State Commons development, or adjacent to it, 25 West Main Street. So we think that the number of students is going to be a manageable number. We have no doubt that there will be school-age children who reside here from time to time, and that they'll be able to be dealt with within the school system. So you have that response from us on that issue raised by the selectmen. We recently met with the Affordable Housing Trust to review the development and discuss with the trustees some of their interest in some different types of affordability, whether it's age-restricted or a mix of that in some fashion. So we had a lively discussion about it. They've appointed among their members a task force that we're going to be meeting with shortly to talk about how we can develop a program that works for them. We think a lot of the issues with regard to age can be dealt with through a robust local preference program that would be available to make sure that particularly local residents know of the development and can see it as an option for them to be able to reside in. So we'll be having further discussions with them, and that's important to get from the 20% to the 25%, which continues to be our goal.
But at the same time, I guess we talked on the previous project about a preference for town employees. That may not be, you talked about age restricted, but at the same time, there are many town employees here that are, 25, 30 years of age. So I think we need, you need to look to balance these things, because we would like town employees to have the opportunity to rent the units, but at the same time, obviously, we would like, to provide housing for people that are downsizing. So you're looking at 2 or 3 different populations that you're trying to use. So maybe when you meet with the Housing Trust, you kind of talk to them about how you can work out the different kinds of populations which you're trying to serve in those units.
Right. The discussion originally went on the idea of taking some portion of the 25% of the units that are going to be affordable, hopefully, and dedicating a portion of those to over 55. I don't think that works under the law.
So,
Yeah, I see that doesn't, yeah.
yeah, that won't work.
Right. So,
Right, I don't understand how that even, we've already had an experience in town where over 55 age restriction was not approved by EOHCD, right? So it's got to be 62 and up.
So,
right? So
yeah, I don't think we're going down the road of an age restriction. I think
Okay.
what we're going to do is try to build a local preference that can talk in terms of preference for particularly long-term residents who have resided in town for a particular period of time. And hopefully that'll achieve giving them the priority, if that's the right term, in tenant selection, that they'll, some people
Yeah,
want
that
to.
makes, quite frankly, more sense to me. I think doing it that way, because I guess this particular project, I don't see putting an age restriction on it will benefit anybody.
No. So,
Just kind of in the same vein, you may want to, if you're going to do a marketing plan for a local preference, you may want to explore working with Council on Aging and Senior Center to get some marketing directed towards the seniors in the community, because they may not see that type of marketing elsewhere and might not even be aware that they're eligible for affordable housing. So that might be helpful.
thank you for the suggestion. Next, we met with the Department of Public Works on Monday of this week. It's been a long week already. To discuss the contents of a letter that we had submitted earlier this month, which was kind of a detailed analysis of how we conclude that the development has the ability to utilize sewer and be granted an exemption by the DPW director from the recently enacted sewer moratorium. Unfortunately, the director was called out of town unexpectedly He couldn't be there, so we're going to reschedule that meeting for sometime hopefully next week, and hopefully when we get together next time, we'll have more to report. But it's at least moving toward a fair exchange of information and a discussion on it. So at our first meeting with you, we spent a fair amount of time actually not talking about the development, but talking about the B-Wall Trail. And so from that discussion, we met with town staff to understand where the overall plan from the town's viewpoint looked at in some fashion, and what actually, to some extent, what the goals were in some fashion. And shared with that part of the discussion, which has to be, as it's applicable for this portion of the trail, the constraints that exist there. And the constraints are primarily that at the very least, there needs to be 26 feet of traveled way for the access drive to serve for the commercial vehicles that use it in a safe fashion. And any type of relocation or expansion of the access area, either south or north, is going to have a material impact on the existing parking of the development, which is already being, basically assembled for the entirety of the development. So with those constraints, what we talked about was trying to move it to a more concrete discussion, and the Colangelos commissioned VHB to come up with a concept plan of how a trail could be established within the access drive to serve as a connector through the development from Lyman Street through. And that was submitted to your board, and we've had further discussion with the town to it. It is a representation of what the applicant would be offering as a contribution. The applicant would do that work as part of the development of the proposed residential uses. So to make sure you understand it, what I'd like to do is have Brittany and Vinod both walk you through the physicality of it, what it is, and then have particularly Mr. Kalakari describe to you why it, from his traffic expertise, it can safely work in a fashion that's important. So.
Thank you, Mark. Again, Vinod Kalakari with VHB, Senior Transportation Planner. So as Mark mentioned, since the last meeting, the development team got together and we developed a concept plan for the section of the B-Wall Trail through the site, through the shopping center. And what you see on this overview graphic here is the full length of the trail that would run through the site, shown in yellow along the northerly edge of the driveway. That's a total length of about 1,100 feet. So that's the total length of the trail that you see on the site. I have some additional zoomed-in views and additional details on subsequent slides, but essentially for the purpose of this discussion, kind of broke this up into two segments. There's a plan right that goes from Lyman Street to the line in the middle that you see there, and then from there on all the way to the left edge by CarMax. The easement extends towards CarMax. That's plan left. So as Mark mentioned, there are several constraints we are working with, but obviously, any design for a trail, a shared use path, or a facility like this would need to meet applicable design requirements and standards. So one thing that I do want to mention, that what you're seeing is not a final design. This was a concept sketch within a limited time frame that we have. We wanted to make sure that we can actually fit a desired cross-section through here within the constraints that we have available on the site, and make sure that we can fit it. And then once there's consensus on a location and the general features of the trail, then more detailed design with grading, drainage, and other information would be developed as part of detailed design. So here's a cross-sectional view of the roadway or the driveway going into the shopping center. So this is a sectional view looking from Lyman Street towards Carmax. So to give you a general idea of what this shows, this is where the southerly curb line is located currently for the existing driveway. And right here is where the other curb line is located, the northerly curb line. So that's a total width of 36 feet that you see up here. So currently, 2 lanes of travel, one in each direction, 1 lane eastbound, 1 lane westbound, is covered in pavement of about 36 feet wide, which is substantially more than what you really need for 2 lanes of travel. And then beyond that point here, you have the 5-foot sidewalk that extends towards the northerly edge of this line. So our proposal in concept is to reduce the amount of pavement to 26 feet, hold the southerly edge of the driveway where it is today, go 26 feet to the east, and set the curb line for the northerly edge. So essentially, that's a 10-foot reduction in the width of the driveway. And the 10 feet of pavement that's recovered from the existing travel surface would be allocated to the northerly side of the driveway to be able to create essentially the section of the 1,100-foot section of B-wall trail that would run through the property. The cross-section of the B-wall trail itself would involve 10 feet of the surface, which is actual asphalt surface for the trail. There would be a 3-foot grass strip on the front, so towards the traffic there would be a 3-foot grass strip, and then there would be a 2-foot level surface on the back of the property. So the total cross-section from the curb line to the back of the trail section is a total of 15 feet. That includes 10 feet of paved surface and 5 feet of buffer, both in the front and the back. Now, there are various thoughts on how wide the paved asphalt surface needs to be. Obviously, the wider, the better. But the 10 feet does meet design requirements. The range varies from 10 feet to 14 feet, 16, depending on the volume of traffic, the usage of the trail, and various factors. There are different widths that are selected. But in this instance, given what we are working with, we are able to accommodate a 10-foot trail with 5-foot buffer, and that does meet design standards. It does not require deviating from any applicable design standards at this point. And that can be accommodated fully within the existing cross-section of the driveway. So from the southerly edge of the driveway here to the back of the sidewalk on the northerly edge, we could repurpose that cross-section, recoup 10 feet of pavement out of the travel surface, and allocate it to the shared use path, the trail. Again, as I mentioned down here, there are a few notes down here. Obviously, there are a lot more detailed design items that we need to get into: drainage, grading, profiles, crossing locations, and how we treat each of them. All of those would need to be addressed as we get into the detailed design.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Is that 36-foot wide, that 36-foot width uniform the entire length, or does it narrow at all?
It is 36 feet generally for almost all of the 1,100 feet. As you get closer to Lyman Street, it actually widens, because there are separate left and right turn lanes coming out of the plaza and 1 lane going in, so it becomes.
I believe that, but is it more narrow closer down to Stop and Shop, or is it still 36
So
feet?
you can actually see, again, in concept, we are able to get that full cross. I mean, this is a uniform width trail right along this edge. We are maintaining that full width down through there. Again, as we get to this end of the trail, the detailed design would be looking at it more closely to make sure that we can get the full cross-section in there.
And I guess what would happen if it were on the opposite side, if it were on the south side? Would it just be a case of moving the 26 feet to the right and moving the 10-foot trail to the left,
Would that,
to the south?
so when, to answer that question, would we eliminate the sidewalk that exists on the north side and put the trail on the south?
Well,
Or do we
yeah, I
keep
mean,
the sidewalk on the north
The
side?
trail is supposed to be multi-purpose, right? I mean,
It
it's
is
supposed to be
multi-purpose,
not just for bikes, for people walking. So to me, having a trail and a sidewalk
Yep.
becomes somewhat redundant. So
So there would be just travel surface on the northerly edge, and then there would be a trail on the south side of the driveway.
I'm just curious, I want to know whether
That would
that's-
involve.
I'm
that
not
would-
sure what the best solution is yet, but we've had some comments that the south side
Sure.
would be better.
So there is a graphic here that I can actually show you what that area looks like. So these are street view images of that driveway, looking again from Lyman Street towards CarMax, both images. One is a view looking 200 feet in from Lyman Street, the other one's looking 500 feet in from Lyman Street. So this is the first section of the driveway as you enter the shopping plaza and you get past that 3-lane cross section, this is what you have. So the plan again here is to start the shared use path at the back of the sidewalk and work this way and finish everything by the time you get to that edge. So and again, it would be the same thing. You'd start at the back of sidewalk here, the shared use path, 26 feet of pavement, that would bring you to this curb line. So your question is, what happens if you move that, essentially you mirrored that cross section?
Right. Either way, you're not losing trees, right? That's,
You would not,
you're not losing any of the grass area?
neither of these, I mean, you would work entirely between this curb line and the back of sidewalk.
And it looks to me like you're moving the crosswalk on Lyman anyway. So if you
Yes.
moved it to the south side of that Gannon entrance, as opposed to just 10 feet south,
So if I may.
Yeah, but Mark, we had that discussion about the fact that crossing Lyman Street, it would be better to do it on the north side than it would be on the south side.
Yeah, but
So
Hazel, we gotta.
why would you do that?
We got a request from the Active Transport and Safety Committee, who is intensely involved with the creation of the trail.
I understand that, and I'm
They asked
aware
us
of
to
that.
consider that,
Yeah,
and so I'm
but I-
considering it, and I want to
okay.
know, is that going to be an additional burden on the applicant to do it that way? Okay, I'm getting a
It would be.
nod, yeah.
If I may, so the benefit of the way that we have it right now is we can maintain the existing curbing and drainage on the south side and then build northerly. If we were to flip it, we would actually have to relocate the curbing on both sides, and it would be very impactful to the drainage on both sides of the driveway. So it would generate more construction work, and it would be more impactful to the existing driveway.
Entire driveway would need to be reconstructed.
Whereas here, we only need to
Working in the
reconstruct half of
northern
it.
section.
So I guess my question to that is, are those short-term construction impacts or are those long-term impacts? Because I'd rather have a B-Walt that's designed properly for the long term than to do what's right in the short term. You know, I'd rather have more construction time happening if it's going to be a properly constructed B-Walt trail.
I mean, as I said, my concern is safety as much as anything else.
Yeah.
And we did have discussion last time that it would be better to have the crossing on the north side of Lyman Street on this than the south side. And one of the things that I know we've not had a comment on, and I would like a comment on, is from the police department as far as safety goes. We will take public comments later. Excuse me, we will take public comments later.
I guess just to answer the question about where does the sidewalk fit, or where does the shared use path fit best, whether it's on the north or the south, we would be proposing a 10-foot wide shared use path with grass strips on both sides. So I guess I failed to see how the shared use path itself would function differently, except for the crossing, but the path itself, whether it's on the north or the south, we're still going to propose a 10-foot wide shared use path with grass strip.
Right, I guess there's 3 intersections on the south side, there's 5 on the north with the parking lots. So that's fewer intersections that pedestrians would have to interact with cars. If the crossing is more south on Lyman, it's a more direct route to the connection across Lyman, so it's just a straight shot. Yes, functionally, the path would be the same physically, but I think the location would change how it could potentially be used by the people, or how this perception of safety.
So,
Just a second, Lisa, our engineer has a comment on this. Let's see what she has to say for a second.
Hi, I'm town engineer. From our perspective, meaning DPW director and myself, it is better on the north side. You don't want to put it on the south side because you'll have the same situation you have at the Rotary when you're pulling out. You've got people crossing right there on your right-hand side while you're trying to look, and you're looking to the left to traffic, so it's not a safe idea. So we, DPW believes it's better to leave it on the north side. I would like to add too that we discussed this in our meeting before. It's shown as moving the crosswalk closer to the intersection, which typically would be the better solution. However, DPW just performed a full-depth reconstruction of that road within the last year or so. So I don't want to speak for the director, but I believe he would prefer not to have any impacts to Lyman Street at this time. So my suggestion would be, and I would work with VHB on how they thought it would be best to be done, is to try to keep the crosswalk currently where it is and maybe set up some funds for when we do go to make repairs on Lyman Street. We have them to move the handicap ramps and, you know, that sort of improvements.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments to Lisa?
Yeah, I just have one thing to go off what John was saying on the north side, having more crosswalks. If safety is a concern, why don't we just ask the applicant to put in those flashing lights? I mean, I don't think it makes sense to put it on the south if the sidewalk's there.
I think they're proposing
Are they?
flashing lights, yeah.
But between,
Putting on the site at the first curb cut, so the majority of the traffic internally would be using that first curb cut when you come
Right.
in off Lyman, and we are proposing, is it an RFB at that curb cut as well?
when you say, okay, the one that's.
Yes, right where the hand is.
Okay.
Are there stop signs at the end of each aisle, access aisle to Gannon Way?
Admittedly, I don't know for sure, but if they're not, I'm sure we'd be happy
I
to
would
commit to adding them.
expect there to
It shows stop signs
Yeah, I
in
think
those
so.
3.
Yeah, it's
Not
part of-
all of them, but just those 3.
part of the design.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you,
it shows
Lisa.
stop
Signage.
lines, but I don't know if it shows signs.
True. Question, and I apologize if this is too out of place. The one intersection that's below Stop and Shop, not the large one near the dumpster. Does anyone ever use that? Can we close that and take away an intersection on the B-Walt if it's going to go on the north side? Does that serve a
That's
purpose?
the drive-through. They used to do the, like, drive-through pickup for
Can they?
groceries.
Okay.
Do they still do that?
Presently not, but they still have the
Yeah, right, which then closed, right.
So no chance of closing that intersection or rerouting it?
It'll probably remain as a curb cut, but it gets very little use presently because it's, it's a long way down there, so.
Right, and I guess, so when I ask about stop signs before, and I'm sorry, Hazel, if I'm, could we have some stop signs where the trucks come out from behind? Put it,
I mean,
so the extreme westerly crossing there.
Yep.
right.
Currently, there's no signage, there's no I don't believe there's any stop signs or markings on the road to indicate that a truck needs to stop there. I mean,
We can look at it today. I think what Mr. Calicari tried to make clear is.
I
this-
realize you're only going so far, and most bikers aren't going to go back there yet, but eventually they will.
No, yeah, and that's my point, is I think the concept plan will have a lot of details in it
Got it,
that'll answer
got it.
those questions once it gets devolved, but we, the reason we put it out there was to have this discussion.
Okay.
This is the offer of the applicant.
Right.
The applicant is not going to put the sidewalk on the south side. That'll be somebody else's decision, but it won't be the applicant doing it. The applicant will do this, will put in the flashing beacons. I think, Vinod, you had another option also, I think, on Lyman Street, I think? Did you?
Yes, we'll get to that. So just
Okay.
2 quick clarifications. So to your question about stop signs, when we get into detailed design,
Makes sense.
every crossing location or intersection along that path within the site for the driveways will be looked at closely, and necessary signage and markings will all be installed.
That
if
makes
they don't
sense, and I'm
exist.
sorry, you made that point at the beginning that it was a
problem.
concept, so I,
And to Mr. Gelchich's question about a straight shot crossing of Lyman Street, actually, if you see where the existing path is, this yellow line here, this yellow sidewalk or a path section here is intended to be where that connection exists today. So it's not actually a direct straight shot across, at least based on aerial views. That's about where the existing connection will be. So it's somewhere in the middle of this driveway. So it's not exact, it's not on the north or the south.
It's
So
almost-
either way, there will be an
It's almost
offset.
equidistant, actually,
There'll
between,
be an offset whether you go
Yeah,
north or
either
south.
way,
So it's
right,
not a straight shot in either direction. You would need to have a jog in the alignment. And based on all the feedback you've heard, we believe that a northerly crossing would be appropriate here, especially with traffic turning and drivers being able to see pedestrians or bicyclists in the crossing. So a couple of other quick slides. So this is a little bit of a close-up view of that area that you see. And to the town engineer's comment, we will look at the potential for preserving the crosswalk location, seeing how we can make that work. We were showing this as being relocated closer to the driveway here so that bicyclists and pedestrians could cross here and then continue on the path on the other side. That's about where the existing crosswalk is located, which is another 20, 30 feet maybe away from the proposed location, but we'll look at it closely. This is the plan left, the left edge where we talked about the drive-through access and the stop signs for the trucks. We also looked at applicable design standards. There are FHWA design standards that call for this type, that support this type of a treatment. So I just wanted to make sure that it's part of the record that RRFBs, the flashing beacon type of a treatment, is an appropriate treatment based on the speed of traffic on the road as well as the traffic volume on the road. And then, again, this is NACTO, which is another national organization that looks at how flashing beacons function. Obviously, this example they had in their report is a 4-lane roadway with a median. But in terms of the effectiveness of a flashing beacon, in terms of vehicles complying with a flashing beacon when it goes on, you have more than 80% compliance when drivers see a flashing beacon at an unsignalized crosswalk. And this is, again, these are all from national standards. So that in a brief overview of what we have presented in our concept plans, and we'll extend it further into detailed design as we go further.
again, could we go back to slide 11 just for a second? Yeah, I know that we had discussed conceptually putting like a bicycle rest area next to, some bike racks and benches, picnic, some kind of, again, I know this is conceptual, but
That is included in our site
is
plans, it's
included,
just not appropriately shown on this graphic.
not shown on this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
so
they were-
regardless of where we land with B-Wall, that is shown on our site plans, and we commit to constructing that.
Well, I like that concept, so thanks.
That made perfect sense. Anything else, Mr. Donahue?
No, yes, look, we have a copy of Mr. Burns' comments, and I'm sure he's going to share them directly with you, and we appreciate him, we appreciate how much work he's put into this. I don't know if there's a perfect solution to get everybody what they want here, given the fact that it still has to serve as a commercial driveway for commercial delivery vehicles, and next to a trail, and it's a limited area. We think this moves it along. It gets a section built and improved in that fashion, and enhances, a shared use system through the development. So we think it's moving the process forward, and the applicant's prepared to make it a condition of approval that he actually perform the work at his expense, obviously, and get it done, subject to certain approvals.
Thank you. All right. Does the board have any other questions for the applicant?
I have one. Regarding the design of the project, would the applicant be looking to doing any improvements to the rest of the retail storefronts?
Yeah, I think that had been asked at our first meeting, and Mr. Berryman's here. He's taking a look at that and providing ownership some options to see what we can work out. And, hopefully he can prosecute that and move it forward before the June meeting, so.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to hold comments on, my one question on the letter, I'm not clear, is that from AT and SC officially voted on?
No.
No.
Okay, so it's,
Mr. Burns.
because it seems to represent that the AT and SC request the planning board.
We
So that's
discussed
just
it
from an individual?
I discussed the changes at the meeting on Monday, but the board did not vote on any collective comments.
Okay.
Peter, do you have any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, I will open the meeting to comments from anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on this application. Mr. Byrne?
I'm Byrne, 58 Flanders. I should say we will, the ESC, I suspect, will be doing it the next meeting. Put out a letter. There's a few things I need to correct.
All right.
Number one, as a
Mr. Burns, just 1 second before you start. I'd just like to notify the public that Mr. Byrne has sent a letter. He is from himself to the planning board. This letter.
Don.
Don, are
She's
you
talking.
listening to me? Okay. The letter has been delivered to the planning board. It is being sent out to other departments in town to be commented on, as well as the applicant. So the letter is part of the record at this particular time. I'm not going to read the letter, but it is part of the record. So if you have any comments in relation to the letter or in addition to the letter, we'd be very happy to listen to them tonight. I ask that any person from the public who is commenting on an application, please keep their comments to no more than 2 minutes, so that we will then have a chance to go ahead and discuss.
Through the chair. Is your microphone on?
Yeah, thank you.
Is that microphone on? Westborough TV, is his microphone on?
You can tap it. No,
Yeah, I don't think it's on.
thank you.
I will try to do it in 2 minutes, but it is going to be very challenging because there are a number of things that I've been checking with since I saw this plan. Number one, as of next month, PROAG, which is the American U.S. Access Board definition for trails, is going to require a minimum of 11 feet. You have 10. So we're already substandard. Mass Access Board is considering 12 feet. I spoke to the chair yesterday, after the ATSC meeting. Number two, Lyman Street, they listed the RRFB because it's less than 35 miles an hour, except technically That's still under state control, and the speed limit is officially 40. We keep posting signs doing less, but it is 40 from Route 30 all the way through to the north side of town. So we are not, an RRFB, according to the Federal Highway Administration, even current standards, let alone the new standards that are coming out next year for bicycle stuff, this does not fit. Number three, it was ironic when I saw Mr. Silverberg. I watched the meeting from 4 weeks ago when I was there, and I admit I didn't present as well as I should have. I unfortunately collapsed a few days later and went to the hospital. But during, I can honestly say, I was out there with the whole CMRPC transportation group and several other design engineers, and 7 years ago yesterday, and everyone absolutely said, no, don't build a shared use path there. Build a separated bike lane, which can take you roughly 11 feet, one more than they want to give us, and then leave the sidewalk for the pedestrians and separate the two through there, because that will be the cheapest, it will also be the safest and the best. The way this is currently designed, we're eliminating all the lighting in that area. If you do not see lighting, you're not going to be able to see the people on the bike path, and the odds of the accidents are significantly higher. And finally, I hate to contradict Lisa, but I will, but as of 5 years ago, there was, for bicycle trail crossings and pedestrian crossings, it's now been recommended you do have a setback, and the setback should be at least 10 feet and preferably more. And so this is actually moving this cross on Lyman closer to the intersection has actually been shown to be more dangerous for pedestrians and crossers. So this is a terrible design, and personally, I'll say I'll never ride that. If you build it this way, I'll never ride it, even though I'm the guy who came up with BWALT, and I'll be putting that in the paper. So this has got serious, serious flaws.
All right, Mr. Brink, thank you for your comments.
Yeah, can I make a comment? According to the concept plan, I don't see it touching any of the light poles, so I'm a little confused by that, but, all right, that's all. I just don't want to get into back and forth on this.
No, I think my basic comment, which I'd just like to put before the board and the public, is the fact that we're trying to work within a limited space. Trying to work with a project which will benefit the town and a BWALT that will also benefit the town. Nobody is going to end up getting exactly what they want, but I think it's very important that we really try to work together with each other and not spend our time criticizing what kind of plans have gone forward, and see if there are ways that we can come up with plans that will benefit both parties. I see a BWALT trail, which has been set forth here as a plan for. I also see a project with a site which will benefit the community. And I think we're dealing with we have to remember, we're dealing with a number of different agencies in this. We have state, we have town departments. And we need to work together to see whether we can come up with a plan which will benefit everyone. Don, your letter is being sent to the rest of the town departments. Hopefully we will have comments on your letter by our June 4th meeting. Mr. Donahue, I'm sure you will also have comments on the letter by that time.
Sure, we'll be glad to submit a response.
And we will have a chance to review them from the planning board. We have not heard officially from the transportation committee. I can't remember the name of it. Jenny, what's the name of the transportation alternative?
Active Transportation and Safety Committee.
Right, from them. So we need an official letter from them. I also myself, quite frankly, would like to see the police department take a look at this for safety purposes. They may be able to add, they may have some recommendations on signage and also on the crosswalk on Lyman Street, which I think is something that has to be looked at very definitely. Mark, you had a comment?
Yeah, can I just add that if we're going to be naming people's names in these letters, that we concur that they actually agree with, I mean, there's 3 people named here that said, they all said that the trail should be on the south side. This was 7 years ago. They haven't seen this concept. Citing people like that, I just think is, I mean, were they recently consulted on this, or were their names just thrown in there for?
Well, I think if someone in the public wishes to comment on an application and they are citing information from other sources or persons, then they need to present information, either letters from those sources or something that tells us that they've had a chance to review plans and have been aware of the changes that have been gone on since the original plans were made for the B-Wall.
I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, I don't want to, I spoke to somebody on the phone after the meeting, and they said, this is going to happen if we do the trail this way. I want a letter from somebody. I want to know who that was, what their, official position is, and, not hearsay.
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, I hope that we're trying to all work together to come up with a plan that's going to work. And as I said, not everyone's going to be happy, but I think the proposal that's been made is one that's certainly looked at, as any proposal should be looked at and evaluated based on the circumstances involved. And I think also it's important that the B-Wall and the proponents of the B-Wall take into consideration the topography they're dealing with, the site they're dealing with, and how they can work and have a viable plan that will take into those considerations. We're not looking at a piece of vacant land. We're looking at a shopping center which exists, and how can we put the B-Wall and have it work with the community within the confines of the shopping center which we are dealing with. So that's kind of my final comments on it. John?
No additional comments.
John? Jenny, do you have any comments? All right. Are we ready to close? Are there any more comments from the public? If not, could I have a motion to continue the public hearing until June 4th, I think is our next meeting?
Yep, I move the planning board continue the hearing for 18 and 30 Lyman Street until June 4th, 2024 hearing date.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. We'll see you on the 4th.
Thank you. Just quickly, beyond obviously the peer review, closing the loop on that, and the question with regard to the facade and follow up on the B-Wall, is there anything else that board members need for information that we should prepare for the 4th?
Not as far as I said, my only concern is the safety aspects in the police department, but that can be done through Jenny. So if there's anything else, I'm sure Jenny will communicate.
That'd be
to
great.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Jenny, have you got any updates for us?
Well, first, I just want to remind everyone that the second downtown meeting is June 5th. I'll remind you again on June 4th, but I just want to say it again for the public. It's at 6 p.m. in this room at Great Hall in the Forbes building.
Someone did ask me, is it going to be televised?
Yes, we will work on getting it televised, similar to last meeting, just the presentation part of it. This will be a little bit more interactive in that we'll have workshop tables distributed, so people will be working in groups after the presentation.
So at least the presentation could be televised. I think, John, you were not going to be able to be there. John Gelsich, you were not able to come probably, and asked about having it televised.
My calendar, I thought I could.
Oh, it was someone,
It might have been me, but it's fine.
someone said they couldn't be there, and someone did ask me whether it was going to be
I
televised.
don't think I have anything booked, but I do have two meetings, or I've, my other planning board meeting on Monday, this one on Tuesday.
It's a Wednesday.
This one on the Tuesday
Oh,
and then that on
and
the
then-
Wednesday.
right,
So
yeah,
we'll see if I have 3 meetings in a row, but
Sorry,
I'll definitely
okay.
do my best.
I don't know, someone did ask me whether it was going to be televised because they couldn't attend, though I obviously can't remember who it was.
Yes.
Through the chair, I just want to say, the first meeting we attended, I took my kids. They had a blast. Well, my daughter did. My son just sat there eating yummy mummy brownies. But, you know, I thought it was really well done. I thought it was very interactive and really helped think about the downtown in a community way. So I would encourage as many people to come and bring your kids.
Yeah, there was tons of food.
Yeah.
So please come down, help us eat it, help me eat it.
You will be providing food.
There will be food again,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, definitely yummy mummy brownies, too.
Oh, good.
And it's a pretty exciting thing. I had a great time at this.
It was really
Yeah,
well
that
done.
I mean, I thought it was so well done, and I can't wait to hear what they're presenting, so.
Yes, so I hope you all can make it. The second thing is that we are having a stakeholder meeting for the B-Wall on May 30th. We only invited anybody that's directly impacted by the B-Wall as a property owner, a residential property owner. So anybody that is abuts the proposed B-Wall trail, or the trail is proposed to go onto their property, they're invited to come. Any board member is invited to come. We just ask that you sit and listen, because it's a presentation on what the B-Wall is, and then going through the process of easements and answering any questions or concerns from the stakeholders.
Now, when is that, and when is that?
It's May 30th, which is a Thursday night, and it's in this room, Great Hall, in the Forbes building,
At what time?
6 p.m.
6.
And there will be food there also.
With
Probably
food.
yummy mummy, yeah.
All right.
But again, it's really geared towards stakeholders, and then we will have additional public information sessions about the B-Wall, just to, you know, address any public concerns and talk about the impacts, positive impacts that it can have for your property and the town.
Great, I think a wonderful idea.
The next thing that I just wanted to talk about with the board was that there was a recent application for an addition to a residential structure, a house on Baker Way, which is included in the Gateway 2 zoning district. And it's a little of an odd one because that is such a small zoning district, but I wanted the board to be aware of this suggested interpretation and get your input on it. So, and how the bylaw reads, technically, any modifications to structures within the Gateway 2 district need to go to the Design Review Board. This is a residential structure. It's a house, and they're putting on an addition. Does the board see that that was meant to apply to residential structures?
Yeah.
I've been asking for several years to take Baker Way out of the Gateway. It
Okay.
should be just zoned residential. I don't think anybody, again, we'd have to talk to the people on Baker Way, but I'd be very skeptical that anybody on Baker Way, mixed-use commercial building or any commercial building next to them. Maybe the two on the corner want to stay in the Gateway, but one of those is a mixed use already. So, I have no problem. I don't think they should have to go to design review.
Okay.
No, I think it's a good call. I mean, it just seems in this particular situation, I mean, this is one of the things I hope that the planning board can do, is to be able to make some decisions when you have a situation like this without forcing a homeowner or even a business owner to have to come and make application to various boards in order to get approvals.
Okay. I appreciate that. Any other comments on that, or you?
Yeah, I don't think we should be preventing a homeowner. They've already, to add on to your house, there's only so many hoops, and it's
Well,
already a
it's not
hard.
preventing, but it is.
It's fine, it's another hurdle for the homeowner.
Exactly.
Let's avoid that hurdle.
Okay.
You want,
It seems like there's a consensus. I don't think you necessarily need a vote. I'm looking for a consensus on that interpretation. And it's something we can certainly look at revising in the bylaw at a later time.
okay.
That's all I have.
All right, reports of board members on town committees, CMRPC. We are having the first meeting of the Community Preservation Committee on Monday, I think it's June 3rd, is the 3rd of Monday maybe? Or the 2nd? Whatever that Monday is, the 1st or 2nd. Okay.
Of June?
June.
Yeah.
June 3rd, all right. So I'll report back in June as to our progress. CMRPC, I know that you sent a notice out today that their annual meeting and awards.
Yes, that is on, I think it was June 13th. It's a Thursday
Something like
night.
that, yeah.
So I just want to make sure the board was aware of it
Right.
in case anybody.
Anybody
Yeah,
wishes to attend?
I'm going to try to go because I'm on,
Oh, great.
yeah, I'm going to
That
try to
would be
go for that,
super.
yeah.
It's June 13th.
Great.
We didn't get an
Sure if
award
I'll
this
be
year.
able to make it.
That's my fault,
Mass
I guess.
Housing Partnership has their Housing Institute that day until 4 in Worcester, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to do back-to-back, but I can try.
It'll be a nice place to visit, Peter.
We could go play 18 and then go to the reception.
That actually sounds like an enjoyable day.
I think we have one set of minutes that went out. John,
Right?
what?
That's my job now,
That's your
right?
job.
Did everyone review the minutes of, what was it, May 7th, I believe? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as written?
Motion to approve the minutes of May 17th.
17th or May 7th?
May 7th, sorry.
right, yeah.
Misspoke.
I second that motion.
I think John beat you out for that.
Oh, perfect. Good work, John.
5 to nothing.
So our next upcoming meetings are June 4th and June 18. I think probably at our next meeting, everybody take a look at your summer schedule if we need to reschedule things. Other than that, if I could have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Westborough TV.